The Silver Wraith's Firelight Queen, a tale from the LARKS North collection in the Wraith saga by Ophelia Key. Chapter 1. The Obsidian Linchpin, Malachor. The velvet curtains of the eternal night draped heavily over the kingdom of Oakhaven, a land where the trees bled silver sap, and the silence was often more predatory than the wolves. The void had consumed Oakhaven long ago. The kingdom of Oakhaven remained a masterclass in gilded decay. The mountains were jagged shards of obsidian, and the forests breathed a rhythmic, suffocating fog known as the Blight. At the center of this dying world sat the spire of Ethelgard, a needle of bone-white stone where time had no meaning, until it needed more blood. Lord Malachor sat upon a throne carved from the rib of a forgotten god. He was regal, terrifying, and utterly hollow, holding back the chaos Lucifer had unknowingly wrought in his grief. For 1,000 years, he had served as the linchpin of reality. Without his mind, the void would swallow the dream. Without his magic, the stars of the Leandale would wink out of existence. But immortality for Malachor was a feast where the food had no taste. Inside the spire of Ethelgard, Lord Malachor watched the centuries drip away like melting wax. He wasn't merely a king. He was a monument to endurance. His skin held the pallor of fine marble, and his eyes, large, luminous, and terrifyingly ancient, flickered with the cold, black-violet light of the void, the tragedy of the static soul, a silver wraith. While the Leandale moved in cycles of birth and rot, Malachor remained a fixed point. He had watched empires rise like morning mist and evaporate by noon, and had loved queens who turned to dust while he still remembered the exact shade of their hair. He'd long since given up any hope for true companionship. No sane woman would ever choose such a bleak existence as walking next to him. Memory is a poison. He whispered the words into the empty corridor. It preserves hunger, but loses the flavor. The silence swallowed his words, leaving no echo for the stone walls to reflect. His loneliness wasn't a lack of company. The spire was full of eternal sycophants and equally damned spirits, but a lack of presence. He was a ghost who could still bleed, a man who had become a machine of pure, cold magic. He had forgotten how to breathe for pleasure. He only breathed to keep the atmosphere from collapsing. He was immortal, bound to the stones of his realm by a curse of blood and brilliance. To his subjects, he was a god to be feared. To himself, he was a man who had forgotten the scent of rain on dry earth. He no longer remembered the feel of sunlight warming a field of grass in the first rays of dawn. He needed blood. Did the pact with the humans still hold? The ancient anxiety gripped him. Until Ilara landed before the obsidian linchpin, Lord Malachor. Chapter 2. The Encroaching Edge, Ilara. Ilara came not from a land of forest songs, sun-drenched glades, or sheltered rock glens. She was born in the Silt Reaches, a desolate borderland where the blight from the void touched the soil and threatened to consume all. Once, the king of Oakhaven had been a benevolent ruler. Promises had existed, but the Blight's curse had almost erased that legend. Almost. Many trees grew twisted with splintered husks, not like the beautiful but silver-bleeding timbers of Oakhaven, and the soil was eternally damp and gray, a landscape of despair where even rot struggled to thrive. The people eked out their meager existence because remaining was the only option. Poverty such as theirs didn't lend itself to a simple escape. As the centuries passed and gave way to a millennium, the memory of the spire of Ethelgard, its immediate surrounding lands, and immortal lord who had once ruled and cared for all in his realm, dimmed into a legend which threatened to become nothing but a bit of esoteric knowledge. The silt reaches had once lain at the edges of the spire's reach. 1,000 years later, and the spire alone as visible in a distance no mortal could reach. The blight had swallowed the castle all at once during a strange cataclysm within the void. The necrotic fog had slowly advanced, stealing a bit more land with each passing century until only the silt reaches remained in the mortal realm. Alara was born 20 years before the century sacrifice. With orange eyes and hair the color of dying embers, in her village, she was a pariah, a witchlight, to be used but never loved. She had a touch that could heal a blighted crop, at the cost of her own blood. Misunderstood and despised, her firelight magic, her gift, was as much a curse as the blight itself. When the blight consumed her family and their lands in the spring of her 19th year, the evil necrotic fog crept over the ground with a speed that only came at the end of centuries. It overcame her magic and swallowed everything that mattered. Exhausted from her battle to save her family, Alara didn't weep. No one in the silt reaches offered her condolences. The dead and the lost were part of their way of life. The void had won. The blight had claimed a bit more of Oakhaven. It wouldn't be long before it all slipped into the void. She used her magic to cauterize the grief, effectively sealing a portion of her soul to survive the trauma. She understood then. Doom waited for them. There was no hope for the future, only a grim determination to fight the blight until it finally overcame them all. Alone and an outcast, when the time came, the village elders didn't draw straws to choose a tribute for the spire of Ethelgard, as they had each century for a millennium. Still, they honored the ancient promise with the sacrifice required, living human blood for a little more time, hoping the immortal monster in the spire still protected the villagers, as much as he long ago swore he would. They chose Alara because they feared her, and because she was a mouth to feed with no land to work, and a woman the men feared to wed. The elders traded her life, hoping for another century of slow vanishing safety, casting her into the void like a stone into a well. She didn't argue with them or plead for her life. She followed her family, expecting their same fate, inching ever closer to the encroaching edge of doom. Chapter 3. More Time. Malachor. The Great Hall was a cavern of obsidian and candlelight. Alara knelt, her coarse wool dress a sharp contrast to the silk-clad courtiers who sneered from the shadows. Their bone-white faces fixed in eternal, stony expressions, their fine silks dusted with silver motes of the void. She was nothing to them but a tribute of the harvest, a polite euphemism for a soul sacrificed to maintain the barrier between the living and the blight. Ilara's blood would serve as a living anchor. Her humanity, her vibrant biological heat, would be the fuel to keep Malachor's hearth fire lit for another century. When Ilara came before him, her skin bruised purple from the void's pressure, she knelt in a hall where gravity was a suggestion, and the walls wept liquid false starlight. "You're small." Malachor hissed his disdain in a harsh whisper as he leaned down from his throne to inspect her closer. The rules had been clear. The sacrifice had to be a willing adult, not a waif. Have they sent a flickering candle to stave off the eternal night? Ilara wiped blood from her lip. Her magic, the wild, untamed heat of a Tintian, roared beneath her skin. "They sent a firelight, my lord. Don't lean too close." Malachor froze. For the first time in an age, he felt a flicker of envy. She could feel the pain. She could feel rage. Ilara was dying, and yet she was more alive than any immortal in the throne room. There was no more question concerning her age either. Her light wasn't the fuel he needed, but a complex element. Never had a gifted human arrived as the required tribute. With perfect preparation, a human possessing magic might become ransom instead of a sacrifice. Had he stumbled upon a way to break the curse, to end the need for a blood sacrifice? Surely not. And yet, the strange sensation of hope coiled in his mind. Malakor's command sounded sharp and angular. That she hid her face annoyed the Wraith, and his irritation didn't fit the situation. "Look at me." His voice was almost soundless. It was a vibration that settled into the space between the throne and the stone floor. Alara raised her chin. Her lip trembled. Her eyes were the color of burnt amber, defiant and alarmingly alive. She feared him, but surprise and curiosity crossed a youthful face. The firelight in her eyes drew his complete attention. "I was told you were a monster, my lord. You look more like a tragedy." Her words slipped softly into the quiet of held breaths, but the court gasped. Malakor leaned forward once again, ignoring the whines, ensorcelled by the warmth in her soul. The shadows at his feet writhed like serpents, even as her firelight drew him ever closer. The firelight in her eyes drew his complete attention. "Tragedy is a luxury of the dying, little bird. I'm simply inevitable." "Then make it quick. I'd rather be a ghost than a prisoner of your boredom." At her soft reply, Malakor felt a spark, a sensation he hadn't experienced in hundreds of years. It wasn't pity, it was hunger, longing. The sudden rush broke the spell. Still, the desire to honor her wishes warred with his need to learn more about how she caused such foreign sensations within him. "Take her to the High Garden to await my leisure." The fear returned, but his men seized her arms and dragged her out of the room. He stood up and strode out of the room, intent on reaching the High Gardens before she did. A place needed to be prepared to accommodate her. He wanted more time. Chapter 4. The Gilded Cage. Ilara. She shouldn't have demanded that Malakor hurry things along. No king took orders from a peasant. As ever, her sharp tongue had led to prolonged agony. She attempted cooperation and did as she was bid. Perhaps that would hasten the inevitable along. In the style of old magic, the High Gardens were alive, pulsing with sentient grey vines that reacted to her moods. But the void pressed against her less, and she breathed easier, even if the high-walled space was nothing more than a beautiful prison. They dropped her on the doorstep of a small cottage and ordered her to enter, bathe, and dress herself, befitting a sacrifice to the gods. Then the men-at-arms withdrew, locking the garden gates behind them. After her bath, Alara sat at the finest dressing table and mirror she had ever seen, and used silver combs to pin her hair away from her face. She stood before a carved armoire, fingering the fine lace, linen, silk, and combed cotton gowns. She finally chose a dark sage green simple frock and dressed herself. Bored and unsure how to behave in her gilded cage, she napped on a settee in what passed for the gray afternoon. But her boredom led her into the garden not long before evening arrived. Malakor visited her as the twilight turned to a deep black night. There was no announcement. He simply appeared. He watched her touch the petals of a moon siren flower, a bloom that usually withered under human touch. Under her fingers, it glowed. She fed the firelight into it, offering it something different from the nothingness of the void. "You have the spark of the Tintian, the firelight from the Anglian." Malakor stood behind her, breathing her scent of orange blossom from her hair, without touching her. It should have felt like an invasion of her space. Instead, she struggled to stop herself from leaning backward into his embrace. A raw, untamed magic. It's why the elders chose you. Your soul is dense with light. Awe and hunger dripped from his whispered words, temporarily breaking the strange spell that had settled over her with his presence. Ilara turned to face him, taking a step away from him. "And you mean to eat it?" She caught the scent of him, cold ozone and ancient parchment dust. He exuded power and ancient knowledge. It was a refined, masculine fragrance. He shook his head. "I need to feed to stave off the weakness, but I prefer to preserve you." Elora looked at him, really looked at him. A lonely man stood before her, entranced by her firelight. He wasn't afraid of her, as every other man had always been. Rather, he seemed drawn to her, unwilling to risk harming her, yet resigned to the inevitable. Was he more honorable than a monster, as the legends had always claimed? "You'll die if you stay. I'm already dead to my village. There is no going back. I understood how this would end when they chose me." He shook his head and looked away into a distance she couldn't fathom. A look of angry distaste marred his features as his voice dropped to a gravelly silk and dripped with something akin to anxiety. It enveloped her and sparked an unaccustomed warmth within her. Her firelight threatened to leap toward him and pull him closer. The encounter unbalanced her. "The void will eventually pull life from your lungs if I do not drink your nectar, and that is less acceptable to me." "And you mean to eat it?" He sighed, and she saw the tips of his long fangs beneath his lips as he reached out, his long, elegant fingers hovering near her cheek. Malachor warred with his need to feed and his expressed desire not to harm her. He didn't touch her. "I'm already dead to my village. There is no going back. I understood how this would end when they chose me." Was the heat of her skin an affront to his frozen nature, or did he hope for her permission like a chevalier of old? Against all reason, she desired to grant him that permission. "Everything I touch turns to silver, dust, or shadow. But you are a firelight, set ablaze in a tomb. Your ruin is not my desire." She closed her eyes to breathe as the wave of heady desire his presence inspired rolled over her. Was that merely their intertwined magic? Or was there some strange, deeper spark between her and the dark, immortal god? Perhaps it confused him as much as it did her, for when she opened her eyes, Malachor had left. The garden suddenly seemed chilled. Ilara hugged herself, wrapping the shawl about her shoulders more tightly, as the gilded cage grew icier with the empty dark. Chapter 5. Dance of Death. Malachor. The next 2 days were a blur of high-stakes magic and agonizing intimacy. She told him of the taste of honey, the sting of a bee, and the way the sun felt on a summer afternoon, things he remembered only as abstract concepts. In return, Malachor taught her how to weave the silver sap into threads of protection. He sought anyway to keep her warmth close, alive. He dared not touch her, lest he ruin the heat she held, lest he siphon her vitality. On the second night, the blight, the necrotic fog that ate at the borders of the dream, surged. It was his duty to stop it, as best he could, from further encroachment into the dream. Malachor knew that a little more of the land disappeared into the murk as the centuries slipped by. Still, he kept the ancient promise to fight the blight and protect as much of the silt reaches as possible. Malachor stood on the battlements, his arms raised. He poured his essence into the shield, his face contorting as his skin cracked like parched earth. It was the burden he bore as the liege lord. He was the magic against the magic, and the shield against the sword. The shield was weak. The magic needed blood. Only the sacrifice had been too perfect, and he hadn't brought himself to quench his thirst and extinguish her light. Elara didn't hesitate. She stepped into his personal space, the dead zone where his aura usually withered life. She wrapped her arms around his waist. A blinding, volatile, vermilion light erupted where their bodies met, a screaming furnace of blended power. The bone-white stone of the battlements groaned in protest. Raw energy crackled over him before it sank into his bones. The sensation was agonizing, like being filled with liquid diamonds. But for Malachor, it was the first time he had felt warm in a millennium. The pain made him feel alive. Her light eased the ache of the cold. Malachor let the pain fuel his fury. The blight recoiled. The sky cleared. Elara released him and slipped to her knees, backing away from the magic all silver wraiths could use.
Chapter 6, Echo of Warmth, Elara.
Elara stumbled through the high garden in the black of a clear night. The chill had returned to the air following the blight's retreat. She walked towards a cluster of moon siren flowers, the pale blooms she had nurtured with her own firelight. They drooped, as if grieving the sudden surge of power that had saturated the air. The primal, silver-hot fusion of their magic had retreated, leaving behind a profound emptiness. She wrapped her arms around herself, but the cold wasn't external. The sudden, crushing absence of Malachor's consuming presence left her desolate. He had seen her at her most exposed, and she had seen him at his most terrible. Her pulse still hammered from the exertion. She hadn't simply fed him her life force. She had plunged her Tintian fire into the core of his void magic. For one searing, agonizing moment, she felt what he felt. 1,000 years of cold, a monstrous burden, and then a blazing, desperate need for her. That terrified her, but it also drew her in. What if she'd been wrong? The whispers in her mind echoed the village elders' fears. They had sacrificed her to the monster, and she had willingly offered her strength to him, becoming an accomplice to the creature she appeased. She recalled his eyes, a searing black violet that had held an unadulterated fury, a fury she had helped ignite. He looked less like a king and more like a celestial weapon, a silver wraith fueled by the magic in her soul. She touched her throat, feeling the still too rapid pulse of her blood beneath skin which had thinned from the shared magic. The desire she felt for him wasn't rational. It was a terrifying, instinctive pull, a craving that matched his own hunger. Only hers was for the cold comfort of his shadow. Did she love the king, or the beautiful, terrifying tragedy he represented? He had vanished the moment the danger passed. He hadn't checked if she was whole. He had simply fled the wreckage of their intimacy. Why? Was it shame over the monster she had helped him become? Or was it a calculated retreat after he had what he needed? Her thoughts twisted her stomach. If he could simply walk away after such a profound, soul-deep merging, perhaps helping him was the gravest mistake of her life. As the magical residue settled, a faint echo of his purpose, raw and desperate, touched her mind. Malachor didn't run from her. He ran for a solution. A flicker of insight showed her the spire's massive library. Inside lay a single, glowing silver scroll unrolled on a table, detailing ancient sorcery. Did he attempt to save her? The idea was a shard of cold comfort, countering the pain of his physical absence. She was alone in the beautiful, chilling garden. Elara grappled with the fear of the monster, the danger of the dark magic he wielded, and the crushing pain of what felt like his rejection. The weight of her new, volatile feelings settled on her heart, as heavy and cold as the obsidian walls of the spire. Elara made her way back to the cottage, attempted a restless sleep, and eventually sat alone in a rocking chair, allowing her thoughts to chase in circles, the echo of warmth colliding with Malachor had left behind. Chapter 7. A Cruel Romance. Malachor. He'd fled her presence and buried himself in his library on the third day. Malachor sought to walk a path in which Elara didn't simply fade away as he consumed her life. A way she never needed to look upon him as the monster she had seen last night. He spent the waking hours ignoring his courtiers, searching through ancient scrolls and codices, seeking answers to questions only Elara had ever made him ask. The last 2 evenings had been a slow-motion collision of 2 broken forces. Malachor didn't consume her immediately, as she had requested. Instead, he talked to her. Until the fog. He watched her grow flowers in the obsidian dust of the void. Malachor stood in her presence on the 3rd night and basked in the soft glow of her magic. He listened to her feminine voice and delighted when she laughed with a high-pitched tinkling and feminine tone. But she kept her distance, and that irked him. "Why do you struggle?" He leaned against a pillar of frozen smoke. "The void is peace. There is no hunger here, no loss." He watched her sing to the shadows until they stopped hissing and listened. She mesmerized the void and ensorcelled him with nothing more than her existence. "For you, but for me, there is nothing but a miserable end." Her voice was raspy on that 3rd evening. The void thinned her blood, making her translucent. Last night had hastened it. Even in the high garden she faded, and yet her bitter words stung him. They held a truth he could not deny. "And you aren't at peace. You're just a statue, a metallic ghost that hasn't realized it exists with no life." Her footsteps sounded like heartbeats in a tomb as she walked toward him. She shocked him and took his hand, a hand that had leveled cities, cast foul magic, and held the cold of the netherworld to stop the blight, and pressed it to her throat. The electric spark that ignited within him at her touch caused his breath to hitch. He had feared to touch her warmth, yet she simply walked past his fear and irritation without hesitation. Claws lengthened on his fingers, pressing against her slim neck, and his fangs extended in anticipation. "Can you feel that?" Malachor's fingers trembled at her whispered words. He felt the frantic, rhythmic thrum of her pulse. It was a countdown and a symphony. Desire more fierce than a desert sandstorm roiled in his soul. To taste her would be to know the divine. "I remember," he choked out the words, his regal composure shattering. "I remember what it is to want. I want more than a miserable end, Malachor. Let me feel that exquisite merging I felt last night again." She tilted her head in an invitation so plain he couldn't ignore it. His control broke. His need consumed him as his fangs sank into her throat. She moaned and reached for him. "Please." He drank deep. The delicate flavor of orange blossoms slid down his throat, and the soft flame of her magic enveloped him, encouraging his efforts. The strength of her human vitality flowed into him, and like the finest of wines, it left him drunk on its essence. She sighed with pleasure as he wrapped her body in his arms, lifting her slight weight off the floor. She wanted his bite, desired his touch. He wanted her sighs, her heated touch upon his skin. He drank deeper, seeking to blend her firelight with the silver shadows of the void. Her body went limp. Alarmed, his fangs withdrew from her throat. A level of satiation settled upon him, rivaling any sense of bliss he'd ever known. Dread swiftly followed it, along with regret. What had he done? he heard her inhale. Frantic to ensure that breath continued, he teleported with her, bursting into the library. He laid her gently upon a soft leather couch and turned in search of a scroll which detailed the blood ritual used by shifters to turn and claim mates. He'd considered how closely it mirrored the mating rituals of some other immortals. He'd marked the differences. Malachor had idly wondered if it was possible to turn a human woman into a silver wraith. No one had ever attempted it. Humans were frail. It involved too much risk. Elara was light and life. He listened intently to her shallow breathing. She drew in a long breath. It sighed out of her lips slowly. Wrong. The faint drumming beat of her heart faded. When she should have drawn another breath, it didn't happen. Panic gripped him. Humans died, and he couldn't accept it. She had been a blood sacrifice to a silver wraith. It shouldn't matter, but it did. Malachor unrolled the scroll and reread the part about turning a human into a shifter using blood. He let his claw slice his wrist, and he grasped Elara, tilting her head so her mouth hung open. The silver liquid in his veins dripped and slid down her throat. His silver shadows drew her firelight from her soul, entwined with it, and slammed back into her. He knew the truth. All immortal blood magic, whether shifters, vampires, or wraiths, drew its power from the same primal source, the void. This shifter ritual, the closest known precedent for integrating a permanent dark anchor into a living vessel, was a desperate, if calculated, gamble. He watched as the magic traced through her veins, glowing a fierce, warm silver light as it spread through her body. Then she pulled in a hesitant breath as fangs descended beneath her lips and claws lengthened on her fingertips. Fine silver threads appeared in her ember-colored hair. Had it worked? Had he saved her? Did she want him? Was there any hope she could consider him a suitor? Dread settled in the pit of his stomach. Her breathing evened as if she merely slept. Elara lived, but he had altered her. He feared her reaction almost as much as he had feared her death. Perhaps he hadn't done the right thing. Malachor could only offer her a cruel romance for the damned. Chapter 8. 1,000 Winters, Elara. Elara woke to a world of profound stillness. The fear was gone, replaced by a crystalline clarity. She was lying on a couch of soft leather, the scent of cold ozone and ancient parchment dust enveloping her. She opened her eyes, and the dim library glowed with a new, stark, silver-white clarity. She slowly flexed her hand. Her fingers were long, tipped with claws that retracted with a subtle click. She reached up and touched her cheek. Her teeth felt strange, a slight, sharp pressure at the gum line. She didn't panic. Panic was a luxury for the living. She was no longer living. She was eternal. Malachor sat beside her, his terrifyingly ancient eyes fixed on her, dread etched on his marble-fine features. He looked like a king awaiting execution, not the one who held the axe. "You woke up." He smiled and breathed, the sound like the rush of wind through hollow stone. I made a choice for you. I apologize. It was dangerous. I wasn't sure. Elara sat up. Her body was weightless, yet anchored to the cold ground of the void. She felt the silver essence in her veins, cool and vast, mixed with the dying embers of her firelight. A perfect, devastating fusion. She was a silver wraith, the thing of his curse. "You saved me from myself, Malachor." Her voice whispered in a low, resonant murmur. "I wanted to give you my life, but you gave me yours. I felt it when your magic entered me. 1,000 years of cold, of duty, of holding back the night. she reached out and laid her newly clawed hand on his cheek. He flinched, expecting her rejection, but then leaned into her touch. Her hand wasn't warm anymore, but it was no longer completely cold either. It was right. The silver and the firelight don't cancel each other out. They lock. That's what the void needs, not constant dripping blood. It needs an anchor as eternal as you are, but infused with the light you've forgotten. Her burnt amber eyes, now flecked with fine threads of silver, held his gaze. I choose the cold and the dark. I choose your cruel romance for the damned. She closed the small gap between them, pressing her lips to his. There was no heat, only a fierce, biting chill, a promise of shared eternity. There will be no more sacrifices. I am the last. A tremor ran through Malakor's body, shaking the stillness of 1,000 years. He pulled her into his lap, his hold crushing, no longer afraid of breaking her. He no longer felt the need to apologize for his existence. Then welcome to eternity, my Firelight Queen. His whisper was a sound that was less a voice and more the dream agreeing to endure. He buried his face in her hair, feeling the cold contentment settle deep in his soul. Holding her close, Malakor felt the last vestiges of his guilt fade. Their new union had already changed the old ways. The silver and the firelight don't cancel each other out. They lock. That's what the void needs, not constant dripping blood. It needs an anchor as eternal as you are, but infused with the light you've forgotten.
The silt reaches settled under the full, eternal protection of the spire, granted safety in perpetuity. They remained locked together until a hushed, tentative cough echoed from the doorway. Malakor lifted his gaze, a possessive snarl curling his lip. But Alara smiled, a slow, predatory expression that revealed the silver tips of her fangs. The sneering courtiers who had watched her sacrifice now stood frozen, a gathering of petrified marble figures. The sneering courtiers who had watched her sacrifice now stood frozen, a gathering of petrified marble figures. As the new Firelight Queen rose from the king's lap, their heads bowed as one, a chorus of silks rustling in sudden, silent submission. Outside, the blight still howled. With the breaking of the curse, perhaps Lucifer might finally fulfill an ancient prophecy, exit the void, and return to the dream. But in the spire's heart, the king and queen of the void had found their silence, and for the first time in a millennium, the darkness felt less lonely, because the Silver Wraith's Firelight Queen had lifted the weight of 1,000 winters of cursed sacrifice.
Ophelia Key thanks you for watching the Silver Wraith's Firelight Queen, a LARKS North Collection tale. Don't forget to like and subscribe. For more stories from the Draoth saga, visit opheliakey.com. Welcome to the dream.